Nick Nanos, the pollster and founder of Nanos Research, went on CTV recently and made comments that I would have to dispute, and as well as on top of that, suggest heavy bias against the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre. Despite your feelings or your personal feelings about the man, I mean, if you are a polling company, you don't have the right to give such partisan perspectives on the politics at hand, because it clearly shows that where your heart lies is not actually in giving a true, fair analysis of the political situation, which is why your polls have been showing such stark changes. It suggests that you have a political agenda on your end that seeks to deceive the Canadian people for your own good. Watch the following clip and let me know what you think.
For a long period of time, Justin Trudeau being a lightning rod and having this ugly carbon tax that not all Canadians dislike, but most Canadians dislike. But you know what, Mike, what's kind of weird is, what are they saying? Mark Carney's sneaky? Like, is that the best that the Conservative war room has? I'm not sure that's a devastating. I'm not sure that's a devastating attack. And to question whether the Liberals will bring it back in, you know, I think if you ask an average Canadian, do politicians sometimes break their promises? They'd say, yeah. Right. You know, whatever they're saying, you know, it'd be, I think it'd be quite fair to say, you know, can you promise me, you know, that you'll remove the carbon tax and never bring one in, and for, you know, Carney to kind of come back at Pierre Poilievre. So, you know, politicians claiming that other politicians won't keep their promises, I don't think is a winning strategy. And calling someone sneaky is kind of lame. It's kind of like, you know what? It's like our house being on fire and you having a sneaky fireman there with his hose to put out the fire, which is right now the Canadian economy and attacks from Donald Trump.
That's if you believe that Mark Carney is that fireman, which of course the Conservatives are trying to paint him as anything but, and possibly another arsonist, one would think. To go along with that analogy. So you've been doing polling leading up to this,
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
As you can see in the video, his shifting demeanor and attitude is very, very offensive against Pierre Poilievre. It's definitely not in favor of him, and he clearly has some sort of problem. And I would not be surprised if he's changing his polling numbers or changing them to somehow, or the sample size or research methods, to show that the Liberals are in favor of winning. As we can see here, his polls just put the Conservatives 1 point ahead of the Liberals as of March 11th. However, if we go to the CBC, which poll tracker, and as we know, the CBC would definitely have more of a problem with Pierre Poilievre than Nanos Research would, because Poilievre is going after them. So you would expect them to maybe be unfair in some regard, but in this way, the Conservatives are still, according to the CBC poll, around 8 points ahead of the Liberals under Mark Carney. And though it was updated 3 days ago, I'm going to assume that the polling numbers did include Carney's boost and all that came afterwards, after Trudeau announced his resignation and that Carney was going to be winning the leadership race. So that's what all these factors included in there. I believe I heard the CBC fellows say that as well. But this is apparent, and this is showing that in a reasonable light, that the Conservatives are still ahead of the Liberals, even under Mark Carney. So where Nanos gets his numbers from, by putting the Conservatives and Liberals neck and neck, and then going on the CTV News network and pushing his very partisan perspective, because he's very not in favor of Pierre Poilievre. It seems to me that he might be doing some gerrymandering under the scenes, behind the scenes, that, of course, will serve his own interests against the Conservatives and for the Liberal Party. We might love Mark Carney or something, I don't know. He might want to marry him, but it looks like he's definitely not in favor of Mr. Pierre Poilievre.